Hey guys, good morning and welcome to another episode of Motorcyclist MC Commute. You guys know the deal this morning. We're gonna be riding to the motorcyclist office in Southern California on Suzuki's 2020 GSX-R750. So let's throw the helmet on and go for a ride. All right guys, here she is, Suzuki's GSX-R750. This is a 2020 GSX-R750, but it's the same as the 2019, 18, all the way to 2011. Suzuki overhauled this bike 9 years ago for the 2011 model year. I know because I was there in Leeds, Alabama, test riding it during its official press introduction. Now, the GSX-R750 is the in-between option in Suzuki's sport bike lineup. They have the GSX-250, the GSX-R600, which this bike shares major components with, the GSX-R750, what you see here, and the GSX-R1000 and GSX-R1000R. A lot of sport bikes from Suzuki. Why does Suzuki still make this GSX-R750? Because it's awesome. Suzuki really just knocked the sport bike world out of the park in 1986 with his original GSX-R750. That motorcycle really harkened in the modern era of sport bikes, and Suzuki staying true to the roots, offering the original superbike with the 2020 GSX-R750. Even though this motorcycle hasn't been updated in 9 years, I love this paint job. Look at the white accents around the wheels, the white accents on the intake, on the ram air intake. This is a very good looking motorcycle, and if you didn't know, you'd probably be hard-pressed to know that this motorcycle is 9 years old. But enough talking about it, let's hop on it and see what it's like to ride. Alright guys, a good fashioned mechanical key. Thank you, Suzuki. Let's start her up. Alright guys, this motorcycle is a full manual bike. There is no traction control, no ABS, no any of that stuff. For a full manual riding experience. Hopping on this thing right away, the ergonomics. Suzuki sport bikes have always offered, oh my god. Suzuki sport bikes have always offered some of the most favorable ergonomics of any sport bike manufacturer. They're always relatively friendly. The seat height's nice and low. There's a decent amount of room for your legs. The handlebars are low, but not too low. It's also worth noting that this GSX-R750 has adjustable position rider foot pegs, so you can actually adjust the position of the foot pegs. Sport bike manufacturers have gone away from that. They have gone away from that probably because just it's less expensive to make, and when they're engineering the chassis and engineering everything, they want the rider in a fixed position. They don't want to add variables to set up for no reason. I like that this GSX-R750 still has adjustable place foot positions. That adds an element of comfort and adjustability if you're someone who rides at the track. You can set up the bike so it's more comfortable on the street, yet when you get on the track you can make it so you can have higher cornering clearance, and I like that ability. This bike is powered by a 750cc water-cooled inline 4 engine, 16 valves, dual overhead cam. Now, when Suzuki was redoing this engine for the 2011 model year, I remember that their main design goal was to make an engine that was more efficient. So more efficient, less mechanical pumping losses, and just have it be lighter too. So on the dyno, this thing makes right around 130 horsepower, which is a little bit of a bump compared to a 600, yet still a ways away from a modern 1000. And when you're riding this bike, realistically, these GSX-R 750s, they're basically hopped up 600s. That's the way you have to think of them. They have a little bit more torque throughout the power band, and then they have a higher rush of power at high RPM. It's basically a 600 on steroids, or a really racy feeling 600. If you were to build a race engine on race gas, that engine would feel like this GSX-R750. Now, I like the character of this engine a lot. I've always been a long time a fan of Suzuki motorcycles and its GSX-Rs because these bikes have a really nice growl to them. They have a nice intake roar. The exhaust note, it's a little bit muted, but the cockpit's filled by this nice engine sound, which makes riding so fun. 6-speed transmission, cable actuated clutch. This thing also has a slipper clutch. The slipper clutch on these bikes works really, really well, even though it's a little bit more of an old school design. The clutch has a bit of pull to it. It's not the lightest clutch pull in the sport bike class, but I don't think it's bad because it's weighted well. If you're a new rider, definitely this clutch pull is going to be a little bit heavy for you, but realistically this GSX-R750 isn't for a new rider. This is for someone who's more experienced. And away we go. No electronic quick shifter. Shifting gears has to be made the old-fashioned way, and that's one of the really weird things about this bike. I know this bike is very old, but you would think Suzuki could at least fit an electronic quick shifter. I mean, how much does that thing cost to fit? $100 in parts? Adding auto blip downshifting would be even better, though it's kind of fun to make these manual downshifts with synchronized use of the throttle, clutch, and gear shift lever. Listen to that thing roar. God, this thing's got some beams to it. Gear shift indicator is a handy touch, lets you know what gear you're in. And although this display is rather old school, I kind of like it. You know, I love GSX-Rs. I've had 2 of these bikes previously, and this whole instrumentation kind of fits the layout and makes me remember my old Gixxers, which I like. Alright guys, finally a turn. And turns is where this GSX-R750 really does well. 420 pounds with a full tank of gas, 4.5 gallon capacity. 420 pounds is very, very light. This motorcycle is extremely light, even for being 9 years old. There's many sport bikes that this motorcycle is still lighter than, if you can even believe that. Suzuki was an early innovator in the class with the use of the Showa BPF type fork. That made spring preload adjustability. It moved it from the top of the fork leg to the bottom. So you adjust spring preload on the bottom with an Allen head. Conversely, compression and rebound damping moved to the top of the fork leg, which was kind of nice because you're going to be messing with that a lot. And over the many years I've ridden this bike and ridden this suspension, I really like the Showa suspension. It has a very high level of adjustability. The range between firm and soft and fast and slow damping character is very large. If you're a heavy guy, light guy, there's a lot of adjustability in these Suzuki GSX-Rs. I also like how compliant the suspension is over bumps for a street bike, for a sport bike. This motorcycle delivers very good ride quality for a sport bike. If you were someone looking for a comfortable sport bike to ride, this bike would be atop my list. Now, if you can even believe this, Suzuki was an early innovator in the electronics department with its SDMS, adjustable engine power mode settings. I think it came out, if my memory serves me correctly, with the 2007 GSX-R1000, and that allowed you to adjust the power band of the engine so you could have more or less power. A, B, and C. A was full power, B was slightly muted power, and C was muted a little bit more. Well, this motorcycle has it, but Suzuki deleted the C. Now it's just A and B. So by default, you're in A mode. A mode gives you full access to engine power. Conversely, B mode, right there, when you hit the lever right here, gives it more muted power. It almost feels like a GSX-R500 in B mode. So B mode is good if you're someone who just got this bike and you want to feel the power dynamic and just want to get used to the engine power and the throttle without having the engine scare you. That's what B mode's good for. But once you're acclimated to the power, you're going to want to ride in A mode all the time. B mode's also cool if maybe you had a girlfriend or a significant other and they wanted to ride your bike and they were a little bit timid. Put it in B mode. They're going to be a lot more confident because the engine's not going to be so powerful. This motorcycle does not have ride-by-wire. It has an old school cable mechanical throttle connection, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. The throttle response on these GSX-Rs is just awesome. Yes, it's not as sharp or as sensitive as a modern sport bike, but it's that little bit of dullness it has compared to a contemporary sport bike I like, especially when you're doing wheelies. Like, these GSX-R750 bikes are so easy to do stand-up wheelies on, it's insane. And I know wheelies are illegal, but I like doing them, and long stand-up ones that you can hold for a long time are very awesome. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I bought the GSX-R750 way back when, was because I saw guys riding these GSX-R750s doing stand-up wheelies on the freeway for a mile, and I'm like, oh my god, I gotta get one of those bikes. So I did. Alright, another turn. This thing rolls on Bridgestone's Batlax BT016. Now, when this tire was unveiled a decade ago, it was a really excellent street tire. And it still is a good tire, and it still remains in Bridgestone's lineup as a budget sport bike tire. But nowadays, these tires, they are just so far behind contemporary sport bike tire technology. If you rode Bridgestone's new Batlax S22 versus this one, it's just literally night and day how much superior modern sport bike tires are, even street tires. So one of the first things I would do if I owned this bike would be to ditch those BT016s and throw on some Batlax S22s or whatever favorite brand of modern contemporary sport bike street tire you have. Alright guys, we're riding here on the freeway at 76 miles per hour at 5,500 RPMs. There's no cruise control, so we apologize for speeding a little bit. This bike is fun, so if we had cruise control, we'd be better able to not speed. But a little bit of vibration through the handlebars, through the control, through the foot pegs. It's not off-putting, it's not excessive, but it's there. The view from the rear view mirrors is very nice. I like how much I can see behind me. And just the roar of that engine, even cruising here at 77 miles per hour, you can hear that intake howl of the engine. I really like that. Sorry, we're getting balked by this Tesla guy. Very easy handling. This bike doesn't steer too sharply. If anything, the handling of it is a little bit more subdued, a little bit more relaxed, but I wouldn't necessarily say that's a bad thing. If you're someone who wants to ride a sport bike and have a very pleasurable riding experience, and something that's not going to scare you or bite you, I think this bike would be a good option, even though it doesn't have ABS or traction control. For sure, it needs a more experienced rider who's familiar with the controls of a bike, but at the same time, just as easy handling and easy power and synchronization between controls makes it a good option for those guys looking for a friendly sport bike. God, she goes. I love giving these bikes the beans. It's so fun. And that's one of the really rewarding things about this GSX-R750 is you still have to ride it a little bit like a 600. You have to give her some revs. You have to stay on it. You don't have to stay on it quite as hard as a 600, obviously, because it's got that extra torque. But you still have to give it some beans for sure. Instrumentation, like we said. Oops, we enabled the hazard lights. Very basic. Trip functions, coolant temp. I also like, though, how it has a thermometer. If you can even believe it, there's a thermometer here somewhere which tells you the air temperature, which is nice. I forgot how to access it, but you can do that. This motorcycle comes with a 1-year warranty. It is still built in Japan, in Suzuki's Hamamatsu factory, which I've actually been to. So these motorcycles are still built in Japan. Fit and finish is very high. The paint on this motorcycle, God, the paint is fantastic. And the way all the fasteners and pieces of the fairings come together are very nice. The braking system, we talked, no ABS, full manual brakes, which I like, because you can do endos like that. Good job, Suzuki. The brake hardware, Brembo monoblocks up front, powered by a radial mount master cylinder with adjustable lever position. These brakes work really good on the street. However, on the track, they are... Oh, first gear, guys. There we go. There's that good throttle feel that allows you to be able to do wheelies for a long time. On the track, these brakes are not the best. They fade. They fade. But on the street, they are good. Oh, guys, we forgot to do the back-it-in test. Dang it, I was talking too much. But this bike backs it in good. So, because I know it backs it in good, we're going to give it an A+. Good job, Suzuki. Alright, guys, that was a pleasurable ride on the GSX-R750. I love riding these bikes. Whenever I ride this thing, it's like a walk down memory lane. Alright, guys, there she is, Suzuki's 2020 GSX-R750. I really like this bike, even though it is very, very old in terms of architecture and design. I still like it. It's fast enough to get my blood pumping. It handles well. It still looks neat, especially in this black colorway. It's very comfortable. A lot of adjustability in the suspension. A lot of character from the engine. Suzuki motorcycles and Japanese-made sport bikes usually get a bad rap for not having character. This bike has character. Throw a pipe on that thing and you're really going to wake things up. It's also got a fairly decent seat on it, so you can bring a passenger if you want. Alright, guys, let's do some Q&A real quick and see what questions we have here. Throttle still twitchy. Hated how on-off it was. The throttle is not twitchy at all. Throttle response on this motorcycle is excellent. It is slightly muted compared to modern ride-by-wire adjustable throttle map bikes. So if you like the old school mechanical throttle feel of motorcycles, you will like this bike. If you're a new gen rider and like the electronic synthetic feel of the bikes, you will not like this bike. That's how it goes. Do you really see any difference with any of the A, B, C modes? Yes, A, B mode are very different. if you're an experienced rider, you're always going to want to ride A mode. If you're just getting the bike or new to riding or your friends riding it, B mode's good. But everyone else, A mode is the way. Electronic steering damper. It is non-adjustable. It is electronic. It's non-adjustable. This motorcycle is a very stable and forgiving motorcycle to ride. The chassis is very stable. I feel like even if they took the steering damper off this motorcycle, it wouldn't even matter because the chassis is so stable. So good job, Suzuki. And finally, is there an ABS option? Traction control? Absolutely not. This is a mechanical, manual sport bike. Some people might gripe that there's no traction control in ABS, but I like it. I like it very much. This engine, truthfully, doesn't really have enough power to really make traction control necessary. You got to remember, you ride this thing like a 600, and even 600s really don't need traction control because they just don't put up enough power to really pump up that rear tire when you're on the throttle. All right, guys, GSX-R750 versus 636. That's a really good question, guys. I'm a Gixxer guy, so I would buy this, but this thing's kind of expensive. $12,500 for this GSX-R750. That's a couple grand more than the Ninja ZX-6R. And you're really not getting a whole lot with this bike. You're really not. So I'll let you guys choose between. I personally would buy this bike, but that's because I've bought a couple before and I love these things. But realistically, the ZX-6R is going to be a better value. So you should probably get that. Alright guys, that's a wrap from the 2020 Suzuki GSX-R750 MC Commute. Thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time. Alright guys, here we are back at it again at Chuckwalla Valley Raceway on Suzuki's 2020 GSX-R750. Because this is a high performance sport bike, we'd be doing you readers an injustice if we didn't at least spin a couple laps here at the racetrack. So let's swing a leg over this thing and see what it's like to ride on track. Alright guys, away we go on Suzuki's 2020 GSX-R750. We already talked about this motorcycle. The last time it was overhauled was 2011. I was there at that press introduction. 9 years old in its current configuration and 34 years old in model years. Of course, the GSX-R750 originally debuted in 1986. And it spawned a sport bike revolution. And here at the racetrack is really where this motorcycle likes to be ridden at. Of course, it's a fantastic street bike, but here at the racetrack, you can really give her the beans and open her up and see what she's about. So let's do just that. What I really like about this motorcycle is just how easy it is to ride on track. 420 pounds with a full tank of gas. It feels light, it feels agile. It's a good in-between between the nimbleness of a 600 and the outright brute force of a 1000. If you're someone who's maybe just kind of switching into sport bikes and wants to experience something in between a 600 and a 1000, this 750 is a good bike to do it on. We are riding on the OEM tires, Bridgestone's Batmax BT016 tires. These tires are over 10 years old in terms of design, and they still work well, but they are nothing compared to the latest modern generation of tires. Sport bike tires have really come a long way in 10 years. I love the character of this bike, the sound of the engine, the ergonomics and the chassis. It's just a very forgiving bike to ride. Of course, I would like to see Suzuki do some updates. I'd love to see a quick shifter. I'd love to see more power. I'd love to see electronics. But if you're just looking for a motorcycle that's just fun to ride, just pure fun, and money's an object, this bike would be a decent bike to buy. You gotta remember, parts for this motorcycle are very affordable, just because Suzuki's been making it so long. and the thrill factor you get. There's no traction control, ABS. It's a full manual riding experience, but at the same time, it's really fun to ride, just like if you were driving a manual transmission equipped car from the old days. That's kind of what the GSX-R750 is like. It's just a good do-it-all sport bike. The classic feel. Nothing surprises you. Nothing scares you. And it's all pure fun. Just listen to that engine sputter. Oh God, this thing sounds so good. Of course, the chassis has a good amount of adjustment. When this Showa BPF fork debuted for 2011, it was one of the best front suspensions at the time. Fast forward to today, it's a little bit older, but there's still a tremendous amount of adjustability in this suspension. And you can really get it set up well for how you like riding the motorcycle at the circuit. Well guys, that's a quick couple laps on Suzuki's GSX-R750. I'm a believer. I love these bikes. This is one of the most fun motorcycles you can buy. Period. The end. Make sure to check out the link in the description of this video for our 2020 motorcycle rider study. We want to hear from you guys. How do you guys ride motorcycles? Where do you ride them? What do you like to ride? Tell us. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.